repetitive strain injury. Yeah, I don't know. I've mentioned, so I will mention it. What I want to mention is there's two cases, or there's two things that I want to just instruct you, and it's about. I'm just trying to look through, make sure I've covered the main in case you get. Yep. Hang on 2 seconds. I can't see anything in there. That's why I'm really worried that I've missed it. Drink real ale.
Oh, you have to had it.
Yeah. She's going to end up with a big arm like this and one big boob, right? It goes with the territory, right? So she needs to use the other arm, right? Because then she'll have two big boobs and two big arms. You know what I mean? She'll be like a weight. But the point being, of what I'm trying to get across here is you need to alternate hands. It's massively, massively important. Alternate hands. Use the other hand. There's a case. It was a woman at the council. She worked for the local swimming pool. She would get 200 kids come in the morning, and when they're coming in, they're basically saying, "Can I go swimming, please?" You say, "Yeah," and she down the machine out like that. They would then put their card on Apple Pay, whatever, Google Pay, on their phone, on their card, whatever it is, and pay. She's doing that 200 times in the morning, 200 times in the afternoon, 200 times in the evening. She always uses the same arm. Always. She gets repetitive strain injury. She gets awarded, whatever it was, £24,000 from the local council because she was off work for X amount of months, repetitive strain injury, physiotherapy. Why? Why didn't the council just put a card holder machine on the front so it was there, like on display, so you can just go up and put to it? It would have solved the problem. She would have never had to take her hands off the desk. Right? It's easy. Right? It's about risk assessing the situation. Because she was off work, she then gets compensation. The compensation goes with the territory because they didn't risk assess it properly, did they? Yeah? So repetitive strain injury is also another thing. So how do we prevent repetitive strain injury?
Avoid it by swapping the hands.
Yeah, avoid's not really, we can't really go for avoid on it. But yeah, we're always looking for avoid, and you're not going to lose marks by putting it in. But you need to give me something else. So avoid, you can put avoid into everything. Right? What I'm trying to get across here. This is a 2-point question. Put avoid, but two other things with it. With me?
Rotation.
Alternate hands. Keep warm. Right? Mechanicalise the process. Get something else to do it. Share it. Rotation. Plenty of breaks. The main one on this is alternate. Don't overstretch. Don't overstretch. Remember the bricky overstretching. Used to happen quite a lot. Yeah? So remember this bricky overstretching. So we're now going to move on. We've got rid of manual handling. You should be happy with that now. We're now going to go on to driving at work. Hazards and driving at work. Yep. Share a slide. It's not much of a slide. There's not many slides for this. Rollover protection structures. You've seen them. You use them at work. They're on equipment that you use. So a ROPS. If you look in your books, you can put in ROPS, and it will come up. It's probably book C, right? General safety or plant equipment. It's probably in book C. It will come up and it will show you. Does anybody know what the two? Because it's generally got two lights on it. Does anybody know what the two lights are for?
One's for seatbelt.
Yep.
And the other one is for, I think, the starting,
Yeah, it's just a hazard moving light. Yeah, so the yellow one is a hazard warning light, obviously, because he is a hazard. And the second one is the seatbelt. Generally, what you'll see them do is plug the seatbelt in and sit on top of it. They'll get feedback on you. Right, so, I don't know whoever it is needs to mute this. I'm talking and I'm picking up. So I'm going to mute yours. Alright. ROPS, rollover protection structures. When we look at them, they're there to protect the operative. And they're there to stop if the thing's going to roll over, you're contained in the seat with your seatbelt, and it will stop you getting injured. Most people try to jump from it. They're the ones that end up dead. Right? If you go in a race car, they have a roll cage in it, same sort of thing. They stay in the car, they don't try and get out. Right? They don't try and get out the window, get out the door, whatever they want to do. They stay in it and wait until the car stops, and then someone will come and put them right and get them out. But that's what they're there for, is protect you. So it's a roll over cage, if you like. That's the easiest way of looking at it. Typical workplace hazards: loss of control, overturning of vehicles, collision with other vehicles, collision with pedestrians, collision with fixed objects. Loss of control and overturning of vehicles. It happens quite a lot. So we get it with underinflated tyres, excessive speed, poor driving, mud on the road, going on uneven surfaces, driver skill, because the dumper drivers are generally people that have not, right? They're generally people that haven't got a driving license and they're young. The job gets given to the youngest on the site, right? And they drive around like a lunatic because they're learning the skills of driving for the very first time. And unfortunately, they can cause a lot of damage as well. And you see them racing around the site, they generally get a bollocking with the site manager and it all stops and goes like that. So when we're looking at potential hazards of dumpers and things like that, is, as I say, blowouts. That can happen quite a lot. Underinflated tyres is generally going to loading on uneven surfaces on banks and things like that. When there's a slope or an incline and they're working in the opposite direction to it, there's high risks of them overturning, upending. That happens quite a lot with forklifts. Collision with other vehicles is from excessive speed, restricted vision, access and egress, type bends, blind corners, things like that. Generally, they bump the scaffold quite a lot. It's generally poor visibility. They've got good visibility out the back from the CCTVs nowadays, but it isn't great. It's not massively great. They still, if you watch them, they still turn around rather than look at the CCTV. You know what I mean? Because it's not great. It's not a great screen. It's not a big screen. I think about 5 or 6 inches. It's not massively. Banksmen are okay until he stops and lights a cigarette. Till he's chatting to his mate as they walk by. Till he suddenly gets distracted by his phone. Probably the most fallible. The most fallible as well is someone putting the ladder as well. It's when we bring humans into it, we bring in error. So error is human. Right? People walk away from putting the ladder. Was that people are banking you up? Yeah, come on, mate. Yeah, I'm on the phone. Don't matter. I'm still bringing you back, but I'm still talking on the phone. I can do 2 jobs at once. Can't concentrate well. I.e., that's where you don't use the phone when you're driving. It's one of these things. Collisions with pedestrians. How do we prevent them? Designated routes, physical barriers, right? Induction, training. So we train people. We have designated routes, good signage, physical barriers, keeping them separate. Yeah, site rules can only work in these areas. No horseplay. Drive at certain speeds. Keep your thing well cleaned, well maintained. check it daily. This is the things we're looking for. Maintenance is a massive thing. Maintenance prevents collisions, because if your mirrors are clear, if your windows are clear, if your alarm is working, if your siren is working, if your flashing beacon is working, people can see and hear you coming, right? And it stops the incidents, the accidents in the first place, yeah? It's about what we do and how we do it. So make sure we risk assess what we're doing. Make sure the traffic routes are suitable and sufficient. Make sure they're not uneven. Make sure they're good walkways. Make sure they don't come off your walkway because it's being obstructed and you have to walk onto the road. Right? That's what happens quite a lot. Somebody puts a pallet of plasterboard or a pallet of pavers or a pallet of curb edges on the footpath, and it pushes the pedestrians away from their zone and out onto the road. Once they go out onto the road, they get run over. I know it's only slow sight traffic, but the machine that turns around pretty quickly at 360, or the machine that backs up pretty quickly, doesn't always catch sight of you. They've got CCTV, and most of the time they're ignoring CCTV because they're on their mobile phone as well. Right? So you've got to make sure that you risk assess it, and you've got competent operators. Competent operators is another potential answer. Training doesn't mean anything, does it? You can train a monkey. To drive a machine, right? Put one in space once, doesn't it? But you can train a monkey to drive a machine. Don't mean they're competent, does it? Yeah? So it's about being competent in what you do. So it's like having training, but it's not necessarily competency. We go back to the rollover obstruct. We go back to the ROPS. I'll just bring it back up so you can see it, just in case you're not aware. They're used to absorb the impact of the energy created when the vehicle rolls over. They're designed to give additional protection to the operator. He hides inside it, if you like. You don't generally get a ROPS question, but these sort of things are fitted on dumpers and rollers. It is basically, trying to think of any other machine that I can think of. That's anyone else help me out here? I'm thinking rollers, dumpers, anything else that you got ROPS on.
Dumper, roller, but the 360s ain't got ROPS though, are they? They're cages, isn't it?
It has the small little 1.5 tonners, would be like, because you can take that cage off, can't you? So
yeah.
It's this sort of, but it's more of a cage. It's more of a box, that one. It's more of a box, right? So the little 1.5 tonners, the really small machines, which got no windows or doors, they've got a box on them, if you like. It's not really a ROPS as such, but it is there to protect. We then come on to the FOPs, right? There's a little 1.5 tonner with a FOPs on it.
They've got a skid.
Right. He is, nothing is going to mess with that, is it? Nothing is going to mess with that. You know, what you need that thing on it. Who's going to throw a brick at that? No one. You know what I mean? No one's coming anywhere near that thing. You know what I mean? It's massive. But obviously, what we're looking at here is the cab is here. This is the structure fitted to the cab to protect the operator from falling objects. So he has got a roof. Not all machines have got a roof. Right? Some of them have got a glass roof so they can look through it, i.e. forklifts and things like that. And the structure is the actual metal piece, the grille, if you like, fitted to the cab to prevent a large object coming in there. You know what I mean? Like a brick or something like that. It wouldn't stop a little stone, but generally a little stone wouldn't break glass. A concrete block boarding from 3 or 4 heights of a scaffold would smash the glass, but the structure, because obviously the glass would just shatter, but the structure would stop the concrete block coming in the cab. And that's what it's about. I can't be any clearer on it. It's really easy to find. You just got to pick the right book. I think it's book C. Then you type in FOPs and it will give you the answer. So, best way of protecting people, physical barriers, as I say, it keeps plant and people separate. Visual aids like sirens, the warning aids that come with it. Environmental conditions, changes of ground, gradients and slopes and things like that. We've got to look at all of this when we're doing site transport, right? The site manager, he will give certain rules like traffic routes. You try to minimise reversing by one-way systems. So you only go one way, stopping anyone going back around the other way. It is a pain in the arse, but it's really good. It stops people being run over. Keep the speed limits 5 miles an hour is sort of the tops. If it's nice ground like where they are at the moment, it looks like an Amazon they're building. It'll be something like 15 miles an hour or something like that. You know what I mean? But it's flat level ground like a normal road. You know, it's no real bad effects going when there's no mud to make you skid. You've got no great big puddles of water. It's all flat and level. Maintenance vehicles, as I say, they should be doing daily checks on their vehicles before they operate them, and then they should be doing a full weekly check on everything. And we covered that on day one, if you like, which was on day 1 and 2 for you guys. And we covered it, and they should be doing a full inspection once a week, fully extending their mass and greasing and everything else. So, but normal rules like keeping their mirrors clear, making their siren works, the lights works is a daily occurrence. Site rules, obviously, they're there to enforce, but a rule doesn't mean anything. Right? It means absolutely nothing unless you've got some sort of enforcement, and the enforcement will be like, if you do that, you've got, yeah? Right, so obviously signage, we keep certain signage on site. It's a good way of keeping us separate from other people in plant. And training, making sure we train our operators, making sure they're competent in what they do. Selection of driver. As I say, the 18-year-old driving around the site in the dumper, it's their first experience of driving, but we've got to learn somewhere, and it is generally, if they're controlled, they will learn and gain some maturity from driving. And you can put our plates on them, and people will be a bit more wary and keep away from them. You know, but obviously, you can't just say mature people are more reliable, because some people don't even turn in. I mean, to the afternoon, things like that. You know, and they're maturer than the younger ones in the street. You know what I mean? Can't just say that. And then obviously, what we're also looking at is drinking drugs. People who have drunk the night before or are under the influence of drugs. We need to make sure that they're not driving or doing anything on the site or operating any machinery in any way. This could be illegal drugs or prescription drugs, because it can impair their judgment. Now, also, when we look at this, so you guys, most of you work in London, but some of you, travel great distances to get to work and then possibly stay up there. But when you're travelling to them great distances, when they build a new Amazon somewhere else, even out of this country, because he does do that, that's all part and parcel of the work. So we're looking at driving hours, the routes, the schedules, and things like that. When we send someone, because we might have a delivery driver coming to us that he is company employed. When we're sending him, we have to risk assess what he does as well. It's important to us, because if we're sending on to heavy roads like the M25, because I'm going to pick on that because you live in London, you guys, it can be really stressful. What is a 15-minute drive can take 3 hours. You know, you've been on it. You know what it's like. There's things we cover: travel distance, driving hours, working schedules, stress, because I get a lot of logistic drivers as well. We get a lot of logistic managers doing this course. Weather conditions, because obviously weather conditions can alter your perception. So if it's heavy rain, it can make your visibility a little bit worse. If it's snow or ice, it can make the machine skid. It's not just about dumpers and diggers. It's about us driving. If it has site managers, use your van or your car, whatever you're given, or whatever it is, and you dip nipple Ricky has got it and the need of it, you are still at work. You are still driving. Right? You've got to be aware of what you're doing. Of course you are. Right? So it has to be assessed. Everything we do. Any questions on driving at work, plant and machine?
None?
None? Really none. Come on, you can't just go to sleep on me. Huh?
I'll say in my workplace, Frank, now, what we do now with the barriers, we make sure we put cable ties on them so no one can walk in between. Because I think they had a fatality, last year, where someone was in a rush, they opened the barriers, the dumper was reversing, he walked out and he got killed. Do you know what I mean? By a 9-ton dumper.
Well,
so now you want to get the machine signal, you've got to put double fingers instead of the one finger, and it's got to be 2 meter distance. It's got to be a 2 meter distance, so you can't be within a 2 meter range of the bucket or whatsoever. So they're making it safer now.
Yeah, they are, but again, cable ties are really fallible because it's one of them ones that can break really easy. We've been using the Harris rail clips, right? The Harris clips, if you like, and we've been getting the ones with the special key because it used to be just a scaffold spanner, and then everyone, if you look at a scaffold spanner, every in sundry and his dog owns one on site. Ground workers, bricklayers always got a scaffold spanner, right? And are they allowed to alter any scaffolding?
No.
But why do they have a scaffold spanner? Right? But they all have
the shit out of the way.
Yeah, ground workers all have one, right? Or ground workers generally have one between a team. You know what I mean? Brickies will generally have one each, right? This is just standard norm. So then what we done, we thought, we've got to stop these guys from doing that. Actually, because they open fences quite a lot, so we actually got the different clip, the one with the little nibbles in it, right? And then they pinch your one, because they haven't got one of them special spanners. You know what I mean? They say, can I borrow it to open the panel? You let them, and then it never returns to you or something. You know what I mean? It goes home with them. They're gone. We try and protect this as best we can, but they will always work humans. We move things, and if they can't move it with that, the 12-ton machine will move it for them. Right? And it happens all the time. The forklift will pick it up and move it out of the way. Unfortunately, we're human beings, and we want to get the job done. And most of us care about getting the job done. Most of us are less concerned about our own health, safety and welfare, and more concerned about getting the job done. And that's a sad thing, really, because we need to make sure we can do the job again tomorrow. That's the important thing, yeah? Anything else on driving? Yeah, no?
No.
Happy? Not happy?
Happy?
Happy.
Happy.
Sandy.
Huh?
Can you hear me?
Sandy, be happy.
Can I hear you? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Happy. It's bad again. What's bad gone? Got some eyes up there. Gonna move into something different. We're gonna move into Lola. Anybody know what Lola is?
Lifted.
Lifting
operation.
Translation.
You got hello. Got hello. Right. And you can get the R because it's regulations, isn't it? R stands for regulations always. Right?
Lifting equipment.
Yeah, there you go. Did you Google that, did you?
Nope. It's on the XA26 somewhere.
Yeah, good. It's not an XA26, it's an XA6.
That's the one.
Yeah, because we keep mentioning XA26, they all look and scratch and everything. What is he on about? You know what I mean? See, so. Right, here we go. Lola, lifted equipment regulations. So, what is Lola? There is at least one question on Lola and lifting operations, at least one, maybe two. So when we look at any lifting equipment used for lifting, lowering, loads in any way, it will come under the Lola regs, right? So that's what we're doing. It's lifting equipment that is used for lifting or lowering loads in any way, including any attachment and accessories, right? This definition requires us to consider a range of lifting equipment and operations in any industry when assessing safety. And you've got quite a few in the XA6, so you should really have that book open at the moment you're going through it, right? Because I do it in certain ways, right? You've got some good answers coming here, and it's really easy, you know what I mean? And it saves you having to do it at homework, doesn't it? Right? So when we're looking at typical examples, we've got cranes, we've got forklift trucks, we've got lift trucks, we've got hoists, MUPs, which is mobile elevated working platforms, chains, ropes, slings, hooks, shackles, eyebolts, tower cranes, gantry cranes. Most of you won't even know what a gantry crane is. I had 5 on the last job. But, yeah, so it's what happens on site, what we use on site. So some examples of lifting equipment are passenger lifting an office block, a rope and pulley to lift a cement bucket, vacuum lifting equipment, vehicle inspection hoists, scissor lifts. Right, that's just some of the, you know, did I surprise anyone with anything there?
No.
Not even vacuum lifting equipment.
No, they carry large things with that.
Lifting.
Oh, okay. Well, I personally, I'm quite an intelligent person. I would have never thought that was in it. But
And the gantry.
I wouldn't have thought it until you said it, but once you said it, it made sense.
yeah, go on, so gantry cranes, yeah.
Yeah, you said most of us wouldn't have any experience, and I'm one of those because I don't know what that is.
Gantry crane, what gantry crane is, probably the best way of describing it is 2 steel girders run down a building, left to right, you know, or what front to the back, if you like, and a gantry crane is the one that sits over the top of the tool, sits on 2 steel girders, and travels up and down the factory, lifting things up and putting them down, yeah?
Okay.
So that's a gantry crane as such. Okay.
So it's more like in the shipping.
And a vacuum one, what kind of where is it used? So then,
They use
glass.
just the manual. It's a manual one there for the glass.
Can be, and they can be attached to cranes and stuff as well. If it's a big sheet of glass, they've got to lift up top flats and stuff.
Hang on.
They usually attach them to forklifts.
Hang on 2 seconds. Oh, bollocks.
Yeah.
2 seconds. Yeah. Looking really at these ones because they're not really gantry cranes. But I'm just going to pick you one. Okay. A nice one. That one there's a gantry crane. So it's a 5-turn single span crane. So still going alongside the building. The crane runs from left to right across there. This one is a gantry crane because he can't move. He can't go anywhere else. He just literally sits and he runs. This one down here is a little bit bigger, but you know, this is a sort of gantry crane, so you can go left to right and he can go forward and back. But he can't do anything else. Right? So, you know, as I say, you know, it's they use them in big warehouses and things like that. You might come across them. There they are there. Right, he's a double one. There's 2 cranes there. Right. So vacuum lifts. Vacuum is a horrible word to spell. VACUM.
W.
It's
U.
I'm going to try. What's that? Vacuum. Right. So these are vacuum lifts, right? So basically, you bring it down, press the button, and it grabs it, sucks it, and you pick it up. Again, we use them for slabs and things like that.
Yeah, we use them for slabs and stuff.
There you go. See, so it's a vacuum lift. That's a big one. I've never seen one like that. That's generally a nice little frame of some sort. and it basically just press the button, it grabs it, it sucks it, picks it up. Let's try slab lifter because that will do it better. It's giving me gantry codes. So. Yeah, but yeah, this is Google. This is why we tell you not to use Google, right? Because it's basically there's one there.
Frank, will the curb lifters go on the low?
There it is. There's a curb lifter is a lifting equipment. Sure. Right, so there's a slab that's like a curb lifter. That one. This one's a slab lifter. So you press the button, it sucks it, and you lift it up. Right. So this one there is a curb lifter. It is a lifting equipment that comes under the loader. Right. So when we look at lifting equipment, what do we have to do with it? All right. It's really important. Right. So when we look at lifting equipment, how often does it have to be inspected?
Within 7 days.
6 months.
Within a week.
6 months.
Right. So there's a multitude of answers coming to that. Right. So when we look at lifting equipment, all lifting accessories have to be checked every 6 months thoroughly. They have to be checked before use. Of course they do, 100%. But they have to be checked every 6 months by a competent person. Some companies will do it monthly. Some companies will do it 3 monthly. That's down to them. The law requires us under the loader regs to do it every 6 months. When we look at a forklift, right, I'll cover forklift right at the end. The reason I want to cover it right at the end is because it's an anomaly all on its own, right? But when we look at a forklift truck, we generally say it's a low piece of equipment because it doesn't lift. It's not a lifting accessory, right? It's not a lifting accessory, and it does not lift people, right? It will be inspected every 12 months. Full inspection every 12 months, which is similar to an MOT, right? It does not have no MOT, but it comes under the loader regs, right? If it goes on the road, it still doesn't have an MOT, right? Even if it's a road forklift, it still doesn't get an MOT as such. It will have a tax list, right? And it will be under the loader regs to get a loader certificate once a year. As site managers, we don't get involved too much with them, but we generally hire them in. When we hire them in, we've got to make sure we get the certificate for it, the alignment certificate. When we buy or hire anything for use, this includes safety harnesses, shackles, ropes, slings, things like that. Ropes is the only one that doesn't come, right, with a loader set, because you can't really test rope too well. So it's covered under the loader regs, but it doesn't actually get a cert for it. Right? So it's a bit of an anomaly in itself on its own. So every part of the load and anything attached to it should be checked, right? Of adequate strength. The lifting equipment itself must be stable, and there are a number of considerations that affect the stability of the lifting equipment, right? Nearby voids and excavations, certainly. Suitability of the ground, right? Is spreader plates needed? Operating on hills or slopes, I mentioned it in the driving one earlier. The size and nature of the load, I mentioned it in the manual handling and I mentioned it in the driving one, because it can upend it easy. Wind conditions, right? Wind conditions, they have an allometer at the top. When it goes off, when the siren's going off, that means it's too windy. Mobile cranes shut down really quickly. Static cranes don't. Static cranes on site, they can go anything up to about force 7, which is really strong. Really strong. Whereas a mobile crane will shut down about force 4. Why? Because it's easy to upend them. And the static crane has got a big lump of weight that's keeping it down. Right? Suitable base for the work equipment. Right? Make sure, because quite often we lift things on a construction site, and as we go and driving in there, we're sinking. On whatever we're lifting it on, whether we're lifting it on a 12-ton machine, whether we're lifting it with a forklift, whatever we're lifting it with, and sometimes the base can be soft and we can start to sink. Counterbalance weights, ballast, outriggers, stabilisers, they're all part and parcel for it. So, you know, we have to make sure that we use it and what we use is fit for purpose. Equipment, when we're lifting for people, right, this becomes totally different. When we're lifting people in any way, it must be inspected every 6 months. When you install these lifts in your buildings, they have to be inspected every 6 months. When we use loops or cherry pickers, they have to be inspected every 6 months. Right, I just said to you the forklift comes under with a loader cert, it's a 12 monthly one. When we lift people, it's every 6 months. So lifting accessories is 6 months, lifting people is 6 months. Right? Lifting equipment as such, I don't want to confuse you too much. Lifting equipment, a crane will be 12 months because you don't lift people unless it's right. The basket he's using to lift people with will be 6 months. Yeah, can we get that or not? Hello?
Yeah,
It's lifting people 6 months, yeah.
Huh?
Every equipment.
Everybody there? Everybody not there?
Yes.
We're all awake? We're not?
Yeah. Okay.
When we do any lifting on site, we use certain people.
Slingers.
Certain people can be the appointed persons, right? These are adequately trained and competent operators who will actually authorise and control the lift. This is what they do. This is it, mate, there in blue with the yellow hat. Right? So he will control the lift. He knows exactly what he does. He does it on a daily basis, right? So he is in charge of it. So he will make sure that it's properly planned, it's appropriately supervised, and carried out in a safe manner. He will make sure the ground conditions are right. He will make sure the lifting equipment is up to standard. He will generally bring their own. They don't generally like to use somebody else's. Unless it's got decent certs on it and he can inspect it first before he's using it. Because sometimes they bring spreader bars, or sometimes you've got spreader bars that you use and they have to use them. Sometimes, you know, dollies and things like that. It can all be down to what you've got, what they've got. Right, so, but they're in control of the lift. This is when we talk about contract lift. So none of you, do most of you have contract lifts, or do you do it yourself?
On what site you go, to be honest. If you're working for a big firm, you'll have your slingers, your crane controllers, crane supervisors.
You have a static crane, yeah? You have a static crane.
Static crane,
You're working in London and the sites aren't big, as in large, over a great distance, right? So you get the crane situated in the middle, and he can reach all of the boundary of the site. But
if it's a...
Yeah, go on.
If it's a small site and you're working with machines, and then obviously you just get the shackle and the drop chain or the slings, and we sling them ourselves. They don't look for slingers and stuff. Save your money, Frank.
Yeah, right. But again, right, you've got to be competent in what you do, trained in what you can do, and making you a slinger banksman is a one-day course, isn't it? You know, it's nothing, you know, and it's something you should be doing. You know what I mean? And it's something to make sure, because if that machine slews round and whacks someone, right? If he does, and it happens quite a lot, you know yourself. But if he slews round and he whacks someone, they would say, right, he was a slinger on it. And you go, well, he was. And you say, well, has he got any qualifications for it? Right. He was the banksman. He was making sure that he never slung. Well, he was. You know, and again, they're looking to apportion blame. And you can see, if they give you that training, and this is the problem, is most companies don't want to pay for that bit of training. You know what I mean? There's a good, I don't know, do you know this story, Oz, about the crane operator and his bottle?
I think so, I heard that.
Yeah, right. Well, anyway, okay, he can go definite, right? But at the moment, you know the big tower cranes you get on site?
Yeah.
It was quite recent. It was, I laugh because it brings a smile to my face, but it shouldn't be. As site managers, we have to risk assess it. So the tower crane driver in the morning, he goes all the way up his little ladder and gets all the way to the top, and he's sitting there and he's doing some this. So anyway, he needs to go to the toilet, and what he generally does with that is he pees in a bottle.
Yeah.
And he builds up his bottle over a few days, right? Or it might have been just the morning. He might have a really weak bladder, I don't know. And he puts the lid on it, he goes out of his door, and he throws it into the skip. Fortunately, the skip is right near the site boundary, right? And he misses. And it hits this bloke on the fucking head. Mate, he's unconscious on the fucking deck. Right? He's unconscious on the deck. He's been hit by a 1.5 litre or 2 litre, because they don't like 2 litre anymore, do they? 1.5 litre bottle of piss on the head, on the bonds. Oh, it's only plastic, it's soft, but when you chuck it from that sort of height, from that crane, and it's hit him on the head, it's knocked him out and it's put him unconscious on the floor. 1, that's a reportable incident. You've injured a member of the public, you've knocked him unconscious and he's being taken to hospital. 2, it's a reportable incident, it's gone outside the site boundaries. Yeah? So that's a double reportable, 100%, isn't it? Who's at fault there?
Crane driver.
Who else?
The site manager should provide toilets, pour balloons, clocks into the...
1, he should make sure he takes adequate breaks, make sure he comes down to use his breaks, right? It's just as dangerous, don't get me wrong, going up and down them ladders is just as dangerous, right? Because it takes you 10 minutes to get up and down there, you know what I mean? But it's just as dangerous going up and down them ladders. Yeah, because it's easy to slip on a ladder. You've done it, I've done it. You know, going up and down the ladder, you slip, you lose your footing, and suddenly you're going down a few, aren't you? Right? But the site manager should make sure he takes his breaks. The site manager should make sure he's got welfare facilities. Right? He has, they're downstairs. So he's got to make sure he takes his breaks. 2, he should never authorise anybody throwing anything in that crane. And it obviously, has any of you ever actually seen that happen?
No.
No. I have had people on the crane, they say, yeah, they do it all the time. And I'm thinking, cool, that's bad. You know what I mean? I've never seen it myself. I've never been a party to it. It was in Brighton, it was. Mate, he got smacked on the head. And it was a big case going through at the moment.
What about the female crane drivers?
I've never seen it.
Because I've seen female drivers. I'm not saying I've seen in peace, but I've seen female drivers.
The cranes. I've never seen a crane female driver.
Yeah, me too.
No,
But
but
that thing that she wins, isn't
Pick up
they?
the toilets.
it's common sense, mate. They can use a funnel. You know, all you're doing is delaying, right? What do women normally do? What about female van drivers? What
By
do
the
they
way,
do?
in Germany, I heard they have toilet.
Huh?
In Germany, I heard they have toilets on the top.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, wouldn't like to be the toilet cleaner, but
Yeah. And even they have lift to go up.
it's got its own little motor that motors it down and motors it up. They just motor it down, right, and it gets cleaned, right, and then they motor it back up into position. It's just a simple electric motor, and it goes as the crane goes round. Can you imagine that blue? Can you imagine that blue loo breaking loose?
Why they do it
in
here?
a high wind and being trajectory across the site, spraying that blue chemicals all over everyone? Can you imagine? Yeah. So, but yeah, they can. Or you know, like if you go on a train, does any of you work on the railways?
I used to.
Right. Okay. So when you work on the railways, right, it says if we go in a train, it says do not shit in the station. Right? Because when you pull the chain, that goes out on the line. Right?
You get shit all over the line, you see paper.
Yeah, right. See, so what they do is you're not allowed to pull the chain when you're in the station, because as they're driving along, you press the button and it just goes along the track, and then the ground worker comes along and says, new ballast there, mate. We'll put your new ballast there. You know what I mean? New ballast there. Or they say, right, we're taking them rounds off, we'll dig that ballast out and we'll send it to site as reused track ballast. Right, so you say, when you're touching that track ballast that comes on the site, you now know where it's come and what's been happening with it. Right? So, but yeah, that's what happens on trains. And if you think I'm just not. And planes do the same. Right? Planes do the same, ships do the same. They get to a certain distance out to sea and they release their cargoes. Right? And planes do the same as well. So yeah. So if you're wandering around one day and a 747 goes over and you get hit by a turd, you'll know why, won't you?
Oh
You get a big turd in the head. You'll know why, right? So, but anyway, we transgressed. But you can see the person obviously at fault on that was the site manager and the crane driver. One, it's not been properly risk assessed. Two, he's not enforcing brakes. And three, you're not using trained operatives because he's done it for a long time. Just because he's been driving a crane for 40 years, don't mean he's any good. All right? Don't mean he's any good at all. All right? If that's his standard practice, he's throwing bottles of piss out from whatever it is, height, 20 metres in the air, 30 metres in the air, 40 metres in the air, into the skip. One, he's not got a very good aim.
What about shitting?
What about shitting? Yeah. You just hang your arse over the end on me. It's hang your arse over the end and just go for it.
In the newspaper.
I don't know, but it's one of the things we have to risk assess. One of the things we have to look at. So when we're looking at lifting loads, simple things we're going to need to consider is the weight of the load, the right accessories, the path of the load, where it's going to go. Are we going over other buildings? Are we swinging over a school? Are we swinging over pedestrian walkways? Are we swinging over the outside of the site? Because you can do it. It does happen, and it happens quite a lot. That young lady, she just got killed in London recently. A pack of bricks off the crane outside the south boundaries, lost its load. There's another one with a sheet of glass that fell out of a window, or it's cut someone in half. There's lots of these sort of things happen all the time. The release of the slings, the clear up. These are the things what happen in the lifting plan, right? So, route of the operations. Right, let's just have a look at this. Back to the slides. I just need to get back to the slides. So that's the slide we was just talking about a minute ago. So the lifting operations and what we're doing, ground conditions, things like that, contract slip, legal transfers, responsibility to the operator, the lifting company. Lifting plan, clearances, ground condition, overhead hazards, because if we come into contact with electrical lines, we'll immediately be a reportable incident, won't it? Yeah. Working near or over water, proximity to roads, railways and airports. A lot of the time these tower cranes have to have the red pressure light on it. Why? It's because they're on the flight path concerning planes. Although the plane never comes anywhere near them, you still have to get special permission for it. Access and egress, again, wind and other weather has potential effect to lift and noise, and noise, whatever noise we're going to create as well. So it's all important. So for routine operations, initial plan may be required and kept under review. For example, like the construction site hoist, the new forklift, vehicle tail lifts. It's just a lifting plan is done originally, and it's just adapted as we go along because we're using it on a daily, minute by minute basis. The forklift, if you had to stop and do a lifting plan every time you lifted something, you would never get anything done. The complex lifting operations are maybe necessary to plan the task each time it's carried out. And again, they are complex. They are more complex, more unroutine, not the forklift. Lifting operations should be adequately supervised at all times using trained operatives. People should never work under a suspended load. That's massively important. It can travel over people, right? Because we can't possibly get them all out of the way all the time. but it's travelling generally. The operator of the lifting equipment should be able to observe the full path of the load, either directly by CCTV or by banksman, which is controlled via radios. But communication is key. Key. Right? Again, it's communication. So when you're doing your lifting plan, it must be communicated to everybody involved or supervising it, everyone that's reviewing it. Lifting operations may need to be halted in the stream radars. Why? Because things go over. As I just said to you, they can work to about 4 gale force wind force, something like that. Power cranes that are fixed on the site can go up to about 7. You know, anything over that, and then you generally put them freewheel and let the wind do what it's going to do. Excessive wind speed. So if you've got a contract lift, unfortunately, when you do a contract lift, it's a little bit complicated as such. So let's say you've got a dual lift. So I'm going to pick something up nice and heavy. I'm using 2 cranes. So I'm going to pick up something around 50 to 100 tons, and I'll bring in a contract lift, say for Tuesday next week. It's my job to plan when it's going to happen. Right? I look at the weather pattern for the next week, and it says fine and sunny. Right? Fine and sunny. But you know the weather, they can't get it right day to day, let alone a week in advance. Right? Fine and sunny. Right? I would then make sure I would get them to come in and assess where it's going, where the crane's going, how they're going to get in and how they're going to get out. Right? Where the lift's going to be positioned and where it's going to, from A to B. So everything should go right. If they turn up on site and they can't get in, right, these 2 200-ton cranes, for whatever reason, right, them cranes might cost you 50 or 60 grand for that day. So if they can't get in, that's down to me. If they come in and set up and they say it's too windy, it's down to me. It's me will pay for that, whether you like it or not. Right? So you have to be good at what you do. You have to plan it properly and make sure you cover all bases. Right? So there can't be any overhead lines or power lines or near them in any way. You can't work near excavations. You've got to be aware of other structures, trenches, other lifting operations, because more than one crane happens on the same site quite often now. Never used to. You used to get one crane and they take it down and move it. You get 2 cranes working in tandem. You get one crane working below another one. It's easy to bring that crane round and knock the other one. So hence, they've got to be positioned right in the first place. Obviously, underground services, voids, drains, basements. You don't want to be siting it, or soak pits or anything like that. You don't want to be siting these cranes on anything like that. If that plate goes through, or his rigger goes through a manhole cover, a light-duty manhole cover that you couldn't see, it was covered in mud, crane's going over. Right? And these are 2 Baldwin's cranes by the look of it, picking it up. So when we look at other equipment, so the forklift is covered under Lola, it gets a yearly inspection. Right? When we look at that tower, that mobile crane there, he's on a yearly inspection. When we look at, we're lifting and accessories, any of these are 6 monthly. Just different types of accessories for different things. These you'll probably never seen or you won't be aware of. These are plate lifters. These are beam lifters. Right? They're all lifting equipment. They would be inspected every 6 months. They would have a Lola cert on them. Right? So when you buy anything like this, it will come with a Lola cert. They generally don't like to hand them over because it means they're liable. Right? But they generally say, oh yeah, I'll send it over to you. When you hire anything, it will have a Lola cert on it. Right? When you work for a large company, you might have Lola inspections happen there. They generally use a cable tie system or a marker system of some sort. Right? The reason I use a cable tie or marker system of some sort is because this is really detrimental to the webbing and the stitching. All right. One, you can put the stitching back in place with a marker pen to make it look intact, which is a big no-no. And two, the chemicals in it can affect the thread and eat through it and make it weak in some way. Right? So marker pens are really a big no-no. They generally use a cable tie system as such. So they might be on red for say January to July, and then they might be on blue from July to December. You know what I mean? So you say that's how they work it, and then you pick it up and say, oh, it's August and I've got a red, so that means it's out of date. It's easy, you can identify it straight away, and in the following year, then what is purple and white. So if you get a red in the following year, you go, oh, that ain't been tested for over a year. And you can immediately pull it out of the system. Right? So when we look at loader certs, lifting equipment, it should have on it the name and address of the examination where it was made. To show it back to you on the slide. So this is HSE stuff I'm showing you as well. It should have the name and address, the employer, or of where it was actually being conducted, the address of the examination, right? Sufficient information to identify the piece of equipment. It might have a number on it, serial number, serial stamp. I don't know, they got plates on them, look, you see. And in them plates, it will have some sort of number on it. If it's a shackle, it will have some sort of identification on it. The slings have a certificate number on it. See them there, let's see. Each one of them's got some sort of identification on it in some way. The date of the last inspection, thorough inspection. The date of the next inspection, and most importantly, the safe working load of the equipment. Right? It has to have on the safe working load of the equipment. Always. Generally, they're painted bright colours. It can be any colour, yellow, orange, red. Absolutely any colour, blues. Doesn't matter. They're generally painted bright colours as such. They're easy identifiable, but we're looking for the safe working load and we're looking for the inspection. Right, that inspection report is never with the piece of equipment. It generally comes as a separate attachment piece of paper. On my last place, I had 500 odd bits of equipment, so it would just be in a big PDF format. All I would do is search the PDF format for the item number, and it would come up. When we store this equipment, we generally inspect it before we hand it back. It's stored, hung up, whatever, in a good place that's dry, free from contamination, free from rodents, free from chemicals, oils, greases, things like that. It's all detrimental, especially to webbings and things like that. We're now going to move on to pure. Lola and pure are basically one and the same things, but one's for lifting and one's for everything else. When we bring in pure, this is the forklift. I know you're going to say to me it's not a forklift, it's a tractor. It's a lovely picture, right? And it's the same as the forklift, isn't it? In all bar, apart from it's a tractor, but the arms are slightly different, but it's exactly the same thing. Now you can see on that, everything red comes under pure, everything yellow comes under Lola. Right, so what it does, because it's lifting equipment, it gets a Lola cert on it. But, things like the power takeoff and things like that, at the back there, down here, in case you don't know what a power takeoff is, it's behind the wheel here, and you connect this to it, and it drives this. It's an extension of the drive shaft, if you like. So the power takeoff drives this piece of equipment. That would come under pure. The seat, and that comes under pure. The rams and all that, they're coming under Lola. The bucket will come under Lola. Right, so all of that lot will get a yearly inspection. But the whole machine, the easiest way of dealing with it is giving it the 1 yearly inspection. Right? So what does pure mean to anyone? Does anybody know what pure means? Provision and use of work equipment regulations. So what would it include? Anyone give me something that it would include? Can we unmute, please? Except for us who's got a little bit of feedback.
Laptop.
Petrol saw.
Huh?
Petrol saw.
Yep.
Harnesses, lanyards.
Lola.
Any electrical stuff, pure now, like, because when we do Lola Puras, we always put down all the electrical, so whacker plates, drills and stuff like that. That's what we put on the Puras.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm trying to get, because I'm trying to educate you, and this is what I'm trying to say to you. What is pure? This is why I'm asking you for input. Vlad, Claude, Ed, can you unmute, please? Right? Come on, give me something. Right. I'm going to go one by one. Right? You can do your same answer, Nodge, because you just done one. Nodge, give me one.
I'll do a petrol saw.
Right. Sam, give me one.
Make notes.
Give notes? No, that's not.
Yeah.
Sam, give me one.
I've got total mind blank, my friend. I've literally.
James, give me one.
Can't go through.
An example of pure.
Yeah. Vlad, give me one.
Tractor.
Forklift. Forklift.
Say again.
Forklift.
No, it's Lola. I just said that to you, Lola. I've said it to you about 17 times, I think.
Yeah.
Right, Ed, give me another one.
Dumper.
Situation here.
Dumper.
Ed, what did you say? I didn't hear.
I said. I said I've got a nice situation here in my life.
Yeah, that's right. That's fine. Just give us something.
Where is the question?
For pure. Give me an item of pure. No, none of you can identify pure. The only person that's giving anything at the moment is Notch of the petrol cutter saw.
What about breaker?
Yeah. All right.
Pressure washer.
Amateur.
Frank, go on, Frank.
Generator.
Frank and his bad Wi-Fi.
Kango.
Ladders.
Yeah, ladders, yeah. Yeah. Claude, go on.
Pressure washer.
Pressure washer, yeah. Val.
I don't have.
Val? Fella?
I said my one. I said the breaker.
How did you? Right, okay, I didn't know who it was. Yeah, Remy, go on.
Angle
There's
grind.
no voice on me. Remy?
Amateur.
Any power tools.
Any power tools, yeah. Go on.
Motor
Ready?
vehicles.
Welding equipment.
Oz, give me one.
Generator. Generator.
Jenny, yeah.
Power generator.
Yeah. So I couldn't hear you, that's all. Right, so yeah. So we're looking at anything. So I'll now give you a bit more description because most people don't understand pure. Right? Most people are ignorant of pure. Hand tools. Hammer. Chisel. Bolster.
No.
Power tools.
Screwdriver. Everything then.
Yeah, power tools. Ladders. Photocopiers. Right? Some lifting equipment. Not all of it, right? Some lifting equipment. Forklift trucks, right? Can come under pure, but they generally come under Lola. Right? Motor vehicles, again, pure. Every workplace across all industries have suitable provision for the safe use of work equipment. All too often, lower risk industries like construction, engineering assume that the use of work equipment is not relevant. Even in an office setting, equipment should be considered. Right? Because what do we do in office situations? What do we look at? What do we go
Laptop. Chair.
We go for, and what do we do with it?
Say that again.
What do we do with office situations? What do we look at? What do we do?
So we get people coming to test all the plugs, all the.
What's that? What's that test we do?
The pack test. The personal appliance test.
The pack test. Right? So you get people to come in to say it's okay. The patch test is a conformity that's electrically safe. Right? When we buy anything, we make sure it's suitable. How do we make sure it's suitable? What do we look for on it?
Tell by the
Huh?
the
British
dates.
standard of voltage.
Yeah, well,
BSI.
we sort of gone back to that, so you are sort of right. We sort of gone back to the British standard, but we're looking at this CE mark, weren't we? Pre-Brexit, we were looking at the CE mark, so we'll still be looking, anything we buy, use, or anything else, it will have the CE mark on there of conformity. I'm just looking to see if it's on my thingies. I can't see it. I would suspect it has. Right, we'll have a CE marking on it. It's there. Right in the middle, CE marking, right? So anything we use has a CE marking on it, and now we got to use the UK CA mark, just to be that slightly different, right? Because it's post-Brexit. But we're generally looking for the CE mark, and the industry has kicked up such fuss that we're still stay with the CE mark. But you know yourself, you can buy them lovely. I don't want to be detrimental here to Chinese people, anyone Chinese, but you can buy them lovely detrimental chargers on eBay and Amazon. They've got a lovely little CE mark on it, and they catch fire within a few minutes of using them. Right? When you buy them, right, because they've come from China, and China can spell CE as well as any other country. You know what I mean? It's literally, and they can still flog it over here exactly the same as everybody else. But, we're looking for some sort of marking. We're looking for some sort of indication that it's safe to use, right? We're looking for the information on it. And we should be getting all of that when we buy it. We get instructions, right? We get guarantees. Anything we buy comes with that sort of marking and things, that information. I'm going to show you a nice little video, I think, on Pure, because I just want to continue on with it. And give you a bit of a break from listening to me rabbit on. Let's see if I'll get it in 2 seconds. Yeah. I might not show you all of it because it's quite long-winded. Yeah, I won't show you all of it, definitely. But I want to get you some sort of gist of it. Share screen. As I say, I won't show you all of it because it's basically, I just want you to get some sort of
machines built to carry vast loads, to handle extremes of heat and cold, to exert enormous force, or perform the most delicate functions. They can complete the tasks of 100 workers, or make the job of one person so much simpler. But they're not foolproof. Through human error or duress, they can also break down, deteriorate, need parts replacing, cause accidents if not regularly maintained. And so, to minimize the risk to personal health and safety, not just for those working with equipment, but also for people living and working nearby, we have PURE, the Provision and Use of Work Equipment Regulations 1998. They place the emphasis where it belongs, on risk to personal health and safety. So, all employers and self-employed with any machinery, appliance, apparatus, tool, or installation being used at work must follow these regulations, as must any plant hire company with control of work equipment. If you're starting, stopping, programming, setting or transporting, repairing, modifying, maintaining and servicing, or just cleaning the equipment, you are legally bound by the regulations and personally liable. When you're choosing your equipment, be it large or small, make sure you know what you're getting. It needs to have been made or adapted to suit the job at hand, and you must use it only for the purposes and under the conditions for which it's suitable. And ensure employees always use the right tool for the job.
Give up there, Stuart.
All right, Derek, I've got to hand over paperwork for you.
Good, it seems to be okay from this side of it. Can I,
Good. Yes. There you are.
Thank you very much.
Right, I'll give you a copy of that then.
Don't take on any used equipment unless it's accompanied by physical evidence that any last inspection required under the regulations has actually been done. And don't forget to consider the risks to health and safety, not just for those using the equipment, but for others working on the site as well. Safety first. Equipment produced after December 1992 also needs to comply with community directives, covering a whole range of health and safety issues. Once you've got the equipment, work practices and authorizations need to be clear and concise. Everyone using the equipment, plus supervisors and managers, must be adequately trained for health and safety purposes. On how to use the equipment, the risks that can arise, and the precautions you should take. And knowing where these are is not a bad thing. Your work practices need to allow for every contingency, and you need to complete a written risk assessment using the principles of risk prevention. Avoid, evaluate those you can't avoid, adapt, replace, and combat at source. Your work systems need to ensure no one's in any danger when the equipment starts up. People may need time and opportunity to get out of harm's way. And you need to know that no one's at risk when you operate the controls. The CCTV system here is vital. You may need suitable warnings when your work equipment is about to start or move. Your risk assessment will have established any requirements here. You need to have relevant information close at hand. Supervisors and managers alike need instructions on how to use the equipment, including conditions and methods of use. Information on foreseeable abnormal situations and what to do if they happen. And also any conclusions to be drawn from past experience in using the equipment. Something that should be included in your risk assessment. If the equipment involves a specific risk, it should be well signed and only used by designated staff who are carefully trained. First aid equipment should be well to hand. And of course, the equipment must always be kept in efficient working order and good repair, using good maintenance management techniques. The actual task of maintenance can pose new risks in itself, and you should take any extra precautions needed to keep it safe. Ideally, the work equipment should be built or adapted so that any risky maintenance can be done with the equipment shut down. Keep maintenance logs up to date and make sure repairs, modifications and services are only done by competent people.
Excuse me, mate. Can you bring me down on auxiliary power? All my power's up here. Yeah, okay, mate.
Safety is one area where it pays to be a control freak. Not just with normal operating controls, but with overriding backup emergency controls as well. The level of control will depend on the risk, and you may need a hierarchy of controls, one overriding the other up to an immediate emergency stop. There are some fundamental rules for your normal operating control systems. Controls must not obstruct emergency buttons. Plan for failures and faults. For example, what happens if there's a blackout? If something fails, is there a spare part available? How is the equipment started? Is it by one or two people? What are the conditions for bringing the machine to a halt? For example, does that require power? What operating conditions will increase the risk, say, going faster? Emergency controls must only be operated by a deliberate action. And as part of your safe work practice, make sure it'll be safe to turn your equipment back on again after shutdown and know who has responsibility. Where the safety of your work equipment hinges on the way it's installed, it needs to be inspected, and any problems fixed before it's used. Your risk assessment will determine how often your equipment needs to be inspected. Should anything out of the ordinary happen that might affect the equipment, inspect it as a matter of priority. The extent of an inspection depends on the potential risks and can include visual checks, functional checks, and testing. Record your inspection results and keep them until the next one. When it comes time to sell off, lend out, or use any work equipment outside its normal undertaking, don't let it leave you without physical evidence of its last mandatory inspection. For equipment on the move, there's a whole new set of risks. On equipment is out unless it's guaranteed safe.
Whoa, stop, get down.
At fault here, the rider and driver. So we must minimize the risks. If your mobile equipment is likely to roll over, stabilize it, ensuring wooden blocks are used if the ground is at all soft. Or make sure there's a clearance for riders if it overturns. Rollover bars make sure it can't fall any further than its side. If it could crush anyone by rolling over, make sure there's a suitable restraining system for the operator and that they wear them. Forklift trucks should be adapted or equipped to absolutely minimize risk. But of course, with all these examples, the preventative measures should not increase the overall risk to safety or make it too hard to operate the equipment. Self-propelled equipment like this dumper truck must keep risk to a minimum whilst it's moving and have adequate brakes for slowing down and stopping. Also, make sure the driver can see as well as possible, and if not, provide CCTV equipment or mirrors, such as those we saw earlier. You need to guard against crushing or impact, including collision, if you have more than one rail-mounted machine on the same track. The equipment needs a brake and stop, with an emergency override that's either readily accessible or automatic. And you have to make sure that it can't be started by an unauthorized person. If there's any risk of fire on any machinery, it'll need to have its own firefighting equipment on board, unless you already have some very close by. If you have, sign it well. Chainsaws are particularly dangerous, and you need to be appropriately trained to use them.
Right, first of all, I'm just going to go through the features of the machine. Down this side, we have the start-stop switch, you have your choke, and you have your main trigger. And something we'll cover a little later when we start it.
The training needs to have covered the dangers arising from the chainsaw itself.
Right, I'd like to just show you the chain. Very important that the chain is tensioned properly at all times. Now, the way you can tell it, you should be able to see 4 teeth. See the bottom of the teeth when you lift it up like that? Make sure
the importance of chain tension. Training should also cover dangers arising from the job for which you're using the chainsaw, and the importance of fuel, oil, and the safety brake. And lastly, the precautions you need to take to control and protect yourself from these dangers.
Spats, which go over your boots, over trousers, a jacket, and finally,
however,
hard hat.
Never use a chainsaw as a quick and easy tool when an electric or handsaw will do the job much safer. Employers need to minimize risks of equipment sending out projectiles that could injure workers. For example, if an abrasive wheel were to burst. Prevention in the first place is preferable. Abrasive wheels should be run within the specified speed limits, and appropriate guards should also be provided. These will catch any fragments of the wheel that might fly off if it does burst, and they should also prevent contact with the wheel itself during operation. And even when not in use, there are still dangers with abrasive wheels. Changing the wheel requires the apparatus to be turned off and isolated, and protective gloves to be used throughout the change. And ensure that bolt is fully tightened during reassembly in accordance with manufacturer's instructions. Safety is the prime concern, with responsibility firmly fixed with both the employer and the operator. There are a few final questions to be asked. Do you need to clamp or stabilize the equipment or some part of it so as not to pose a risk? Is the area where the equipment is to be used lit well enough for the work to be done safely? And is the lighting itself suitable? Is the equipment clearly marked with any safety precautions? And is the equipment, its parts, or anything produced, used, or stored in it either very hot or cold? If so, it needs protection to prevent anyone being burnt, scalded, or seared. Pure's regulations have been introduced to minimize the risk to the personal health and safety of those working with equipment and those working nearby. But provided good work practices are in place, within the parameters of the regulations, risks should be kept to a minimum, so that the machines continue to work with us and not against us.
Quite a good little video, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's sort of enlightening. I don't use it very often. I don't know, perhaps I should a little bit more. The reason is they spent it, I know it's old, but it's, they sort of spent a lot of money doing it. Most things that frighten people about Pure is the hand tools. People don't realise the hand tools are part and parcel. And it does, you know, you think, oh, it's cross, you know, so it's one of the things that comes with it. We've got to move on, and we need to get that one out of the way. We've got a few more subjects to cover before we start going on to lunch and then on to our project. So, we've done temporary works, so we've got fire and electricity to cover today, and then that's us on day 3 is finished. Day 4 is totally different, always left for us today. And day 4 will be working the height and excavations, and we can bash that out in an hour, so that's not too bad. So when we look at the project, we start that this afternoon after lunch. We'll then get some free time. We work through it together as a team, and you will complete that ready for next week, and next Saturday morning you will present that project to me. You will possibly get, I'll let you in again around 8 o'clock-ish, so, and I'll sit here and chuck you in your teams as you come in, to allow you to finalise it between 8 and 9, and then you'll probably go to me, can we have a little bit more time? Right, and I'll give you a little bit more time, and then obviously, when we're looking at offices at work, right, we're looking at It's all protected. Everything on site will be protected by a 30 milliamp RCD. If you look up here, this is all in milliamps. It says current in milliamps. 0.5 to 2 millionths of an amp is the threshold of perception. 2 to 10 millionths of an amp, painful sensation. We're still not up to what our cabins are controlled by. 10 to 25, inability to let go, danger of asphyxiation. Now we're into the 30 milliamp RCD, right? 25 to 80 millionths of an amp, loss of consciousness from heart of respiratory failure. Over 80, burns of point of contact, death from fibrillation. So that's how bad electricity can be. It's not the voltage. I've got someone in the chat. I need to get the kids outside. Yeah, go on, carry on. Just carry on. Yeah. You just carry on. Yeah, I don't know how old that message was. Just get on with it. Just do what you need to do. Lock them in the cupboard. Lock them in the cupboard. Just get on. Just do what you need to do. Just, you need to get up, go to the toilet. You need to do whatever you need to do. We answer the doorbell. Go and do it. Just don't, This is one of the pleasures of teaching from home, but I can't do it because you like that. Right, so when we talk about electricity, we've got electricity, voltage, we've got current, voltage, and resistance, and it's made up of 3 elements. It needs 3 elements to make it flow. So current is present. That's the dangerous bit. Half an amp is enough to kill you. Your kettle carries 13 amps. Most things you use carry 13 amps, right? So half an amp is enough to kill you. The voltage is what is distributes or moves the current around a circuit. The resistance is what slows it down or allows it to flow in the first place. When you get an earth fault or when you get an electric shock, you become part of the circuit. You become its pathway to earth. You're the one that gets hurt, right? So current flow is affected by its impedance or resistance, which I want to call it. They are similar, but they're not the same. Resistance is measured in ohms. The voltage is measured in volts. Amperage is current is measured in ampage. It's proportional. In this country, we work at around 50 hertz, 50 cycles per second. When we've got 415, just so you can understand it, that is 3 phases, each with 240 volts in it. They're 120 degrees apart, so at any point in time, the 3 sinusoidal waves crossing each other, you should be able to take a measurement and it will read 415 volts, which are now done to 400 volts. That's only for distribution purposes, but it's still 415 volts. The risks with electricity obviously is electric shock, electric burns, direct or indirect, electrical fires, electrical arcing, damage to the eyes, secondary hazards. Obviously, if you get an electric shock, you could fall from a ladder or wherever you're doing, wherever it is, so you can fall from a height. It's not necessarily the shock. If you've ever heard, it's not the entry ring, it's the exit ring. That's the same with electricity as it is with a gun, right? It comes in, it leaves a big hole where it leaves you, but where it comes in, it will leave a big hole as an exit ring. Electric is very dangerous. We can't see it. There's no way of avoiding it. We can just walk in and touch something. It's as simple as that. I can't be any plainer. When I was working at a job in Basingstoke, up near that, the mental institution. I was working at a job up there, was building some flats, and what the SCB done is they gave them reverse polarity, and they put basically phase into the neutral and the neutral into the phase, and they've done it for 10 flats or whatever, and the copper gas pipes running down the side of the building on the outside became alive and between the 2 to 3 pipes you could read 415 volts, because the neutral and earth is combined inside, and they basically, it's only when the dumper had knocked a road sign over, it fell against the pipes and arced and threw it back in, and they went, shit, that's live. Why is that live? Suddenly, everyone was getting electric. I got electric shock there yesterday. I didn't realise, because I was sat in that gas box eating my lunch. And as he got up, he put his hand in the gas pipe and got about and just thought it was static. And it had been going on for a few days, and the SCB come down and try to cover it all up, but reverse polarity, massive, dangerous, huge danger. 415 has got the potential to kill you, 100%. Anything over that, 11 kV, 33 kV, 400 volt, 400 kilovolts, amps, will just disintegrate it. Electricity from the pylons and that can arc anything up to 18 meters. Alright, so it's massively dangerous. When we handle electricity in any way, we need to make sure, look at it, pick it up, look at it, say, yeah, it looks okay to me. I'm just going to examine it in some way and see what it looks like. Check the lead, check the cables, whatever it is, just check it in some way, look at it. Just look at it and say, yeah, it's got a CE marking on it. I've seen the pat test, I've seen the last time it was inspected. So when do we pat test them? Anybody know?
Once every 3 months.
3 months by testing.
Yeah, yeah. Once every one. When we're looking at 110 volt tools or something like that, we can use on site. It's once every 3 months, right? So we're looking at once every 3 months. When do we check them?
All the time.
Before use. Before use. We're always going to be looking at before use, and it should be checked every 3 months. When we look at the cabins, our offices, because remember, you guys are all aspiring site managers, right? When should your cabins be checked?
Every 12 months testing.
Right, so you say, now this one throws in, has got its own separate regs, right? It comes in under the construction site regs, right? It will be protected by 30 milliamps for all the site offices. Anything in your site offices, just so you know, your printers, your laptops and everything else, will generally come under what you would look at as commercial installation. So it only has to be pat tested every 5 years. While construction, we're not there 5 years. We're not there 5 years, so we generally pat test them once a year. What construction's got this nasty little habit doing is buying a new microwave, kettle, fridge, and throwing it out at the end of the job, which is the end of the year, so they don't have to even pat test it. It's just gone. Gone. Why? Because it's generally that dirty and broken, and we need to get rid of it anyway. But generally they keep it less than a year, and obviously if you keep it within the year, you don't have to re-pat test it. But that's generally what we look at. So if you're looking at anything on site, 110 volt drills, Kangos, anything like that, they must come with a pat test, and they must be tested every 3 months. They must be inspected before use or before we work with them. Right, so
When you get that tested every 3 months, they should be
3 months. Every 3 months, yeah. Right, so every 3 months for 110 volt stuff. Because why do we use 110 volt? No?
They won't kill you. They won't kill you.
It won't kill you, no. Right? You can take 50 volts all day long. 50 volts, you can just take it, it'll run for 1 hour, it won't kill you. Right? It might give you a little tingling, a little sensation, but you can take 50 volts. 110 volts is 55 volts to hour. Alright, so it's half of it to hour. AC, totally different. Alternating current is 240 volts to hour. So you get that, it's 240 volts. 110, because it's a direct current, it's only 55 volts to hour, so you'll only get 50 volts. And I just said to you, you can take 50 volts all day long. So 5 over isn't going to particularly hurt you too much. You know what I mean? See, a cow, totally different. That will kill them because of their spread of their legs. They've got 4 legs, and the spread of the legs and their contact points with the ground, you know, like that, it will kill a cow outright. Right? So they use low voltage, really low voltage, 12 volts, and give them a good whack with an ampage, like a battery. If you look at a battery in a car, it could be 100 amp, right? Throw a spanner across the two, the live and neutral, you know, the red and the black, and it will crack and burn a hole in the spanner, right? Because it's that powerful. It's 100 amps, even though it's only 12 volts. It's really, really powerful. If you get 2 jumpies and touch them together, it gives you that big spark, right? Why? Because it's high ampage, low voltage. So the best way to work with electricity is low voltage if we can, always, right? But on sites we tend to use 240 volts in the cabins, and we tend to use 55 volts or 110 volts, 55 volts throughout on portable handheld equipment around the site. We do distribute 415 on some sites. We do use it, and it does get distributed quite a lot. All right, so, but it will be controlled in a controlled sort of nature. All right, so weatherproof fixings, weatherproof accessories, overload equipment on it, and it's massively protected. It will all be protected by 30 milliamps. Right, because it's handheld. Anything that handheld is going to be 30 milliamps, and have discrimination with 100 milliamps on the other end. So, but when we work with any of this, we must check it, make sure it's adequate for what we're doing. Make sure that what we're doing has been properly serviced and it's got a PAT test on it. It's got CE markings on it. I can't be any plain with that. That's the best thing you can be looking for. If someone is electrocuted on site, how would we approach them?
With a bit of wood.
Fucking yeah, a bit of wood. Get off it. Yeah, exactly that. You've obviously got first aid, I suspect. Anyway, anyone else got first aid? Yeah. Emmy's got first aid, Brad's got first aid. Anyone else? Well, you're lucky. Yeah, if you're ever moving across the site manager, you'll have to do a 3-day first aid. And they teach you, if any of you've done it, like the 3 that's done it, they would teach you this little thing where you come in and doing this bits with the hands, yeah? And like, you see the smiles coming to their face, right? Because they've all done it, they've all had to do it. What a crappy scenario is. You come in, you make these hands, and what you're doing is looking for danger. Right, because just because they're laid on the floor, don't mean how did they get laid on the floor? They could have been hit by a lump of floor that's come down onto them. They could have been electrocuted. They could have been shot. Could be absolutely anything. So you're looking for danger. You're assessing the situation, and then you're going to go, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?" And this is one of the things they teach on first aid training. So it's with the hands, looking for danger. Right, why are they on the floor? If they've been electrocuted in any way, you need to be isolating the supplies. Right, if you can, if it's accessible, switch it off. Don't run down the road. First thing you need to do is shout for help as well. Shout for help. Always call someone else, just in case you get knocked out on the same thing. Shout for help. Isolate the supplies if you can. Right, if you can't isolate the supplies, a piece of wood and move them away from it, or move the electrical cable that's in contact with them away from it. Get that away from you and them, because it can arc. As I just said to you, high voltage stuff can arc up to 18 metres. That's a long way, 18 metres. What's that? 60 foot, is it? 60 foot, 18 metres? That's a long way.
And if the piece of wood is wet, is it still sufficient?
You've always got to do it, innit? Go and fucking buy the dry piece. Why, James? Why have you got acid? Why about the woman crane driver? Have anyone ever seen a woman crane driver?
I have, yes. The site that I worked in had.
Good. You tell the woman crane driver to cross her legs. Go and find a dry.
Anyway.
Right? Water conducts electricity. It's self-explanatory to you, right? If you've got a wet piece of plastic, it will not conduct through the plastic. It will conduct through the water and will give you electric shock. Water is no good, right? No good. right? Water is a conductor. Plastic, wood is not. So it answers your own question. Cross your legs. You say to the female crane driver, do not shit over the edge and do not go for a pee. You cross your legs. Stay up there. Don't want to see you until 5 o'clock. Right? And you say to the person who's assessing the situation with the electrical one, don't pick up a wet bit of wood. Right? It is, you pick up a piece of dry wood. Dry wood, honestly. Preferably hardwood, and hit them very hard with it. Right? That's what it's about. But yes, it does conduct. Water conducts, right? But it's a little bit, you know, if you want to look at how to control an electrical incident on first aid, do the 3-day first aid course where we can talk about using different colour woods and different conducting materials. But water conducts, wood doesn't. Right? Wood is an insulator. Right. Also, wood burns. Right. And with electricity, we've got control measures that we need to make sure that we get plenty of ventilation. We protect the conductors. It's strength and capability. Fuses, earthing, isolation, double insulation. What I'm going to mention, which is really important, not wet wood, is the term I'm going to use is lockout, tag out. Anybody ever heard of it?
Yeah.
Right? Because it will be in your exam. 100%. Lockout, tag out. How do you prevent someone from re-energizing a circuit?
You can't dig the key. You lock it and you dig the key.
Lockout, tag out.
Lockout, tag out. Right? If no one has got any idea what I'm talking about, right? And so I'll just try to put lockout, tag out with the game. So we get lockout. See if it gives me a picture, something after. Right, so if I'm looking at a lockout, tag out kit, right, simple way. Don't want to take the cookies, go away cookies. Right, I'll share it with you so you can see it. A lockout, tag out kit is that there. Basically, it locks onto the breaker. It locks onto the breaker. You screw it onto the breaker. You put on the label, you put on a label that comes with it, says this has been locked out and it's been locked out by such and such a person. There's the label, do not operate. It's gone with a padlock on it, and basically it's there saying you can't energise it in any way. You have to go and contact that person there whose name's there and department and telephone number possibly to get it removed so you can re-energise it. Right, but that's a lockout, tag out kit. Amazon just wants to move around, so move around. Right, and it's there basically just to protect the operators working on. Anyone working on the circuit will have the same keys. Right, so if there's more than one spark working on the area, you'll have the same keys. Lots of people like to say remove the fuses. Don't mean anything. Anyone can stick a bolt in there and re-energise. The lockout, tag out, clearly a ground worker will remove that as easy as pie. Right? Because he carries with him everywhere he goes, including T-brake, a 300 mil petrol capsule everywhere. And if he wants to get that off, he'll just cut it. Right? But generally, they take one notice and one look at it and go, I'll leave it alone. Right? And the reason he leaves it alone is because it's there to protect whoever's working on the circuit. So lockout, tag out is the best way of doing it. 110 volt equipment, tested every 3 months, inspected prior to use. This is the things we need to know about with electricity. These are the things that you're going to be tested on. I'm not going to teach you electrical installation. It would take me 4 years, possibly some even longer, right? But I am here to teach you just about the protection you need as site manager. When we look at things, obviously we're looking at fuses, earthing, insulation, locking off, double insulation, RCDs. Now, does everybody know what an RCD is?
Portable diffuse. It's not diffuse, but
Not portable.
I don't know proper name in English.
Although you can get of them that are portable, yeah. it's a residual current device, and all that thing does, it's got a little donut in it, and basically it's got a base running around one side and a neutral running down the other side. And all it does is basically the base and the current are in balance. Right? And if you touch something and you get a fault to it, it will operate. Now it operates in millionths of a second. It's really, really quick. Right? So it will generally operate in under 40 millionths of a second, sometimes as low as 11 millionths of a second, right, on single voltage. You need to get bed earlier, fella.
Sorry, I did.
You need to get bed earlier, man. Stop yawning. You make me.
I slept about 8:30, mate.
Did you? Good.
Honestly.
You didn't send me paper until 9 o'clock. You done that, being then.
Literally after that paper, I slept.
So anyone's working on these systems must be competent. RCDs are there to protect us. They're really good, and they ensure you get no more than 50 volts to earth because they operate so quickly. When we work on electricity, we have safe systems of work. When we use portable electrical equipment, as I say, we use 110. Give me another way of using portable electrical equipment which takes away all the problems.
Transformer.
Yeah, that's 110. Transformer's 110, so that's 55 volts to earth. Yeah. Which, just so you know, them transformers don't like RCDs, or RCDs don't like them transformers. They do like to trip them all the time.
What about splitter box?
Yeah, but again, it's splitters. You're still talking about you're moving 110 volts. What I'm saying to you is battery.
Oh, okay.
Battery's better, always. If we can use battery, it's better. And most sites now have moved away to battery, aren't they? Most people now are using battery portable equipment nowadays.
Yeah.
Charging stations everywhere. The charge. Claude's shaking his head. That's no. Go on.
We got battery powered petrol stores, but they're rubbish. They go within like an hour, and this is where rubbish.
They don't last too long. Batteries don't last too long.
No. The technology is still lacking, right? But you can't be 110. If you are an installation guy doing anything, 110 is the way to go forward, 100%, because it's just loads of power. If you've got a battery one and it's not got that power, not got that impact ratio, it takes 3 times as long. So you're going to get the repetitive strain injury, right? You have got then the vibration. You're going to get the hazards from it, right? So you're really reducing this time, right? What you just said, Nodge, with the petrol saw and replace with a battery one, is it don't cut it. They haven't got it. There was a nice little story in the paper the other day, mate. He's just changed and he's gone to the electric car. Right, he's gone to the electric car. Anyone drive an electric car? Right, he's just swapped to an electric car. He's had it 6 weeks, I think it was. He's driving down, because electric cars at the moment, the big thing. He's driving down in main road in London, and he loses power. He stops, and he can't do anything. Right? And because it's an electric motor, you can't push it, because it's got hydrostatic brakes. Right? If anyone knows anything about forklifts, as soon as you take your foot off, because they have hydrostatic brakes on, as soon as you take your foot off the end, they've got like a clutch that comes in and stops you from moving. Right? So you don't actually have to pull an actual handbrake on as such. And this is exactly the same with the electric motor. So, stuck, he can't move it, he can't move the machine, everyone is blowing their horn at him, and he feels like a right donut. He said it's got full charge in it. He's knackered. He then goes back to his diesel. He says, I don't want this car anymore. And he goes back to his diesel mode. But it's what we're being pushed.
2 days ago, 2 days ago, one blew up outside our house.
Yeah.
We had the fire.
Just caught fire? Yeah, there is. Because
I'll get you fixed still there.
If you remember, we were sold diesel a little while ago like this. We were sold diesel like and now diesel is 20p. Do you know diesel was created as a byproduct of creating fuel, petrol, right? So when they created petrol initially, right, diesel was a byproduct of it. It was the waste, if you like. It was the waste bit of it. And then they suddenly realised they could actually use it, and it was really good. But if you go back to the early days, diesel used to wax up and it clog your engine. So anything cold, it's now been refined. And diesel, we go back to when I started driving, it was cheaper per litre or per gallon than petrol, and now it's 20p a litre dearer. And now construction sites are not allowed to use red. They're now being charged white tax rates. So the difference being, they used to pay 50p a litre on red, they're now paying whatever it is, £1.70, whatever it is, I don't know. What's it a litre now? £1.70? They're trying to murder the construction industry by applying tax rates to it. I don't know what you're doing. Are you all still using red? Or what do you think is the most... How do you think most fires are created on construction sites?
Materials.
I have given it before, but how do you think most are?
Hot works, yeah.
Hot works.
Right, you would think that, yeah. Right. The biggest risk of fire to any, or the biggest risk to any organisation is obviously fire. Right. The outbreak of fire has potentially devastating consequences. It can put organisations out of businesses in an instant. Loss of company information interrupts the organisation that fails to overcome. Right? It can bankrupt many, many companies quite easily. Risk posed by fire is absolutely horrendous. Right? I want to pick it. Oh, I can't do it. That's right. So I was just going to pick something as well, just share it with you, but I can't do it on this one. So, right, okay. So when we look at fire, we look at the fire triangle. 2 seconds. I just want to reshare that because it's not let me see, and I don't even know you're in the loop anymore. Right. So when we look at fire, we look at the fire triangle. And we need 3 elements. Right? This is basic fire and its principles. We need 3 elements. We need all 3 to make fire happen. Take any one away and we stop it. Back to sharing it. Fucking assholes, I'm getting pissed off. Yeah. Right, just the PowerPoint, hopefully this time. Try again. Take one element away. No, right, what's that? Sorry. It's all crossing around. 1 minute I couldn't see you. Next minute you can see too much. All right. So we need 3 elements. When we look at 3 elements, we need heat, fuel, or oxygen. So take any one away, right, and we stop fire. We can't take oxygen away, can we? All right. It's practically impossible. But we can do in certain environments. We inert it. Right, and we pump nitrogen in there instead. And when we flood it with nitrogen, we take the oxygen out of the ring. So that's one way of dealing with it, but that's complicated. In normal circumstances, normal construction, heat is there all the time. Hot works, sparks, ignitions, electrical appliances that are overheating, badly ventilated. The biggest cause of fire in the workplace is
Uncontrolled hot works.
Arson. Arson is the biggest cause of fire in the workplace. Always. Arson. Yeah, you're looking like that. It is kids breaking in at night. And do you know why they do it? Because you don't clean up after yourselves. If you take all your crap and put it in the skip, they set fire to the skip. And then you make that phone call. Hello, Mr. Skip Company. Your skip is here and needs collecting. It's empty, but it's severely black. You take it away and repaint it, please. Because the kids come in and set their light last night. right? Easy, isn't it? When it's in your building, it burns your building down. It potentially spreads to other buildings and potentially kills people. When you've got a pallet of timber, a pallet of plasterboard, a pallet of whatever it is, a big pack of timber, it's practically impossible to set a light. Practically impossible to set a light. It will burn very, very slowly. Very, very slowly. Right? Especially if it's wet. Right? Which it generally is because it's been stored outside or it's been treated in some sort of way. Right? So it's hard to burn. When it's scattered around in loose little clumps, it's been cut and the saw has whipped through it. The saw whipping through it dries it out anyway and heats it up. It's a lot of stored energy. It's got a lot of stored energy in it. And it will set alight very, very easily. So you need to make sure housekeeping is good. If your housekeeping is good and it's all in the skip, they'll only set fire to the skip. Right? The fuel is your waste. Most building materials are combustible in some way. The oxygen is all around us, and the heat is the little tow rag with a match, or it's someone doing hot works, right? But as I say, most fires are caused by arson. So when we're looking at ignition sources, we're looking at overloaded circuits, faulty equipment, heaters, gas oil heaters, anything that's combustible, like a combustion engine of any time. Hot services, 110 volt equipment gets really, really hot, especially the halogen stuff or the festoon lighting. It gets really, really hot. I've unfortunately left a festoon light on a work surface once, and it melted through it. So yeah, it's kitchen work surface. It gets really, really hot. Arson is the most cause of fires. So, and that's obviously easy to deal with. If we put our crap in the bins, they can't set fires with it. Or we could do what we normally do, chuck it outside and make nosh big and all that. Because that's what generally happens, is they all throw it outside and the ground rent goes round. And that's to clear it all up, and then they get the ump, right? And they get the ump quite a lot with that, quite easily. But they do, and it happens quite often. Right, so obviously if we use tipping skips and we get it away, we get it into the main skip, they set fires to the skip. As long as it's not too close to the officers, it's not going to do any damage. As long as it's not too close to any other combustible stuff, it's not going to cause any damage, is it? So fuel sources, when we look at fuel, because we covered, obviously, you don't miss any on the source of ignition, probably smokers and cigarettes. Don't generally see it too much on site so much now. Smoking sort of died out a bit. Everyone's vaping. So these vapes are just as dangerous. There's been reports of bin lorries catching light, rushing it up inside their batteries into the bin way. He's driving down the road, it's all crushed up, it leaks, it burns, it catches fire, right, and sets fire to bin wagons. Batteries being disposed of, rechargeable batteries, what we get in our phones, when we get in our computers, we got our grills, going into the bin waggy, sets fire to the paperwork, sets the bin wagon alight. There's a few that's happened so far, right, because we're not disposing of them properly, yeah? So, and again, vapes, they got small little batteries in there, they've got small little charging units in there, and again, it can set fire to the rubbish that's going into the bin wagon. You wouldn't think that, would you? It's supposed to be recycling, and most people just chuck them in the bin. So yeah, be warned. Liquids or sources of ignition, right? Liquids, flammable liquids, solvents, chemicals, petrols, just trying to think, glues, anything like that. Paper, card, plastic, rubber, foam, gases, furniture, textiles, waste material, anything we use in the building industry is a fuel for a fire. Housekeeping forms a vital part of the control measures, right? And we need to control the amount of waste we produce, what we do with it, and where we contain it. Oxygen is all around us. As I say, we can't really do a lot with it. It's there. In normal construction activities, we can't do it, can't do a lot about it. It's around us and it surrounds us all the time. But if we take either two of the other elements away, we can stop the fire. when we look at fires, we do a fire risk assessment. It's the same as a normal risk assessment. We identify the fire hazard, source of ignition, source of heat, source of oxygen, identify who may be around it, people in and around the premises, people especially at risk, like disabled people, members of the public, evaluate and remove or reduce and protect from the risk, right? So evaluate the risk of fire starting in the first place, evaluate the risk people from the fire, remove or reduce the fire hazard, remove or reduce the risk to people from the fire, and protect people by providing fire precautions. Plan, record, instruct, and inform and train. Record any major findings in your action plan. We'll practice your fire drills, obviously, discuss and work with other responsible people, prepare for emergency, which is your fire plans, right? So you should have a plan, get people out, get them into a safe supply. Inform and instruct relevant people, provide training. Review, it has to be constantly updated. We're construction, we work in a dynamic industry. What we do today is totally different tomorrow. As we build something, we move it, we instruct people, we move materials, we change offices. It changes, we're constantly evolving. How many people have fire drills on the site?
You just said how many people says what?
How many people have fire drills on your site? How many people conduct fire drills on their site? Right? People tend not to have fire drills very often. They don't like to have them because it disrupts everyone and no one ignores them. And that's no good because you need to practice emergency procedures. Right? You need to make sure that what you've got in place protects everybody around them. Yeah? We need to make sure that we're given adequate protection. Right? So we do fire drills for some reason. Anybody know how often we have to do a fire drill?
I think it's once a week.
No.
Well, every 6 months.
Every 6 months.
Who was saying every 6 months? Yeah, 6 months, yeah. I say a fire drill must be conducted every 6 months. Fire checks or testing equipment will need to be done weekly. So if you've got a fire alarm, construction don't really have fire alarms too much, but heater panels and things like that. How do you activate the alarm on site?
But you state your 5 points.
Scouting fire and
5 points.
Yeah, master points.
Yeah, you got screamers, have you? You got screamers. You got little stations, have you? And then repeaters, yeah. Well, because you're working on this one building, you know what I mean? This one building you're building, but they lose loads of certain areas. You really struggle. The last one I just done, the only signal we could repeat around the site was 3, network 3, and no one else's phone was working up there, right? And it was heavily shrouded in trees, right in the middle of nowhere. No mass, so it's got nothing else to bounce off of, right? So when you're trying to push Wi-Fi around the site, it's practically impossible. So then repeat panels are okay, but they don't go through concrete blocks, heavy enduring concrete blocks. They don't repeat through that. So it has to be line of sight. They are direct. Right, they are direct. They're not alterating, so they don't bend round corners, and you can block them out really easy. And suddenly moving one state from another might work. It might lose signal. So that's one way of raising an alarm. Another way is a klaxon, which is either the hand one or the bell. You tie in the hand or the bell. They're great. Shouting fire is another way, a huge good way of raising an alarm. The air horn as well is another good way of raising an alarm, but on a large site you're not going to hear it. This is why we've got the repeater panels now, and that's the screamers or the howlers, what you want to call them. They are good, but they have limitations. When we look at fire extinguishers, right, get different class of fires. and we get different ways of controlling them. So, the one that's really good there, which one do you think's really good?
Dry powder.
Yeah, which one don't they have on site? I think it's banned on most sites now, isn't it? Which one don't they have on site? Dry
Chemicals.
Yeah,
The chemicals, huh?
Right, the dry powder one, they don't have that one on there because it makes one hell of a mess. If anyone let a dry powder one on?
No.
I had, but health and safety said to remove. They had dry powder in the kitchen, and they said now it should be CO2 in the kitchen. Yeah. Otherwise, it would make more problems than you sorted.
Yeah, right. Because obviously it's just so. If you actually let one off, it just blows. And if you've got a dual carriageway or something like that in front of you, if you let one off, you will totally obscure the dual carriageway. No one can see. No traffic can in. That's what they do. So you can imagine that in a little 12 to 12 room or a 14 to 14 room. They are very good at what they do, and they are the best extinguisher out there because you can see the only thing they can't do is deep back fires. But you don't generally get many deep back fires on the construction site. But you can see they call them the ABC extinguisher. They do all classes of fires basically. So they're really good. The water one, obviously, we can only use it on certain materials. It's solids, wood paper, something of an organic nature if you like. The class B one, right, is flammable liquids, so like petrol, oil, fat, wax, things like that. Right, so again, it's sort of limited. C, fires involving LPG, natural gas, acetylene. There's not many extinguishers that will cover the gases, right? Water does work with gases because it cools it. It cools it. It basically can take the heat away and manage to extinguish the gas that's burning. You're going to cool it, right, and get rid of it. But it's really hard, right? D, obviously, the class D is for metal fires. Now, one of the reasons that Grenfell went up like a lunatic, this is aluminium. Aluminium really is massively flammable, hugely flammable. Sparks loads, burns really quickly, and just disintegrates and spits, and it's really volatile when it burns, and it was aluminium on the outside. And the last one, F, which is fires involving fats and cooking oils, which you don't really see a lot of. There is also spray ones as well, which is the chemical ones, which is it puts a fine mist over it. So when we look at fires, how does anybody know the routes of which fires are spread? Yeah, no.
Left, right.
Huh?
No, you don't.
Left, right.
Left, right. What did you say?
Up, down.
Never down.
Right, he's got his kids in it now, so he's messing about. Look, right. So convection, conduction, radiation, and direct burning. So when we look at convection, right, the easiest way to say convection is if you heat something or burn something, right, smoke rises. So if you start a small fire at the bottom of the block of flats, it will rise straight up the stairwell. That's convection, right? When you got cool air going into a radiator, it passes through the warm things and goes out and circulates out into the room. That's convection, right? That's what they call convection radiators. Conduction, that's when we heat something and it passes from one to the other. So if we've got a saucepan and we put a spoon in it and we put the gas on, the spoon becomes hot, right? Because of the hot water in the pan. Right? That's the easy way of looking at conduction. Radiation is direct from the sun. That's a good way of looking at it. Right? On a bright, hot, sunny day, it heats up the bonnet of your car. You can go out there and fry an egg on the bonnet of your car. Why? Because it's taking the heat from the sun. And the last one is direct burning. Now, direct burning is probably the most, it's the most common, so it spreads from one to the other. But most things resist it in some way. Wood is a good insulator against fire. It's a good protector against fire. If we want to protect steel or concrete flooring, If you want to give an hour's fire protection to the underside of a carport, if you like, the concrete floor for a flat above, you can clad it in tongue and groove timber. That will give you 1 hour's fire protection. Mental, isn't it? You put a wooden coating underneath it, right? But it gives it that protection because direct contact, although you've added the fuel, you've added more fuel to it, if direct contact, a flame won't burn through it because plywood gives you 1 hour's protection. A normal solid door can give you 30 minutes. A solid door, a hollow core door gives you 20 minutes. You know what I mean? See, so it's about a direct flame. That's how they test it with a direct flame. Put a blowtorch against it. Common causes and consequences of fire. Most causes of electrical fire: cooking fire, housekeeping, lack of control over smokeless materials. Biggest one is arson. It's always going to be arson. Individuals caught in a fire likely to be burned, which could be fatal. Obviously, we was talking about burn risk when we were doing the accident reporting, so it's more than 10% of the body, it would be reportable. When we're looking at equipment, as I say, we identify it, we record it, we maintain it, and look at it as best way we can, right? Fire is a huge risk on site. Right? When we look at any equipment, right, we should inspect it daily just to make sure it's still in position, because what Chippy's got this habit of doing is taking your fire extinguisher and using it to pop the door open, right, to bring something through. I say Chippies, I'm going to pick on Chippies this time, right? They do it and they pop the door open with it, and then suddenly somebody else moves it to another door and pops another door open. And before you know it, it's in some other room instead of being where it should be in its position. So as site managers, we just need to check that they're still present. Right? They're still present. At least weekly, we want to go along and give it a little kick. Make sure it's still in the same position. Make sure it's got a pin in it. Make sure it's still got some reading on the gas meter. Annually, they will be inspected by a competent person. He will pick it up. On the powder one, he will shake it like that and re-agitate the powder in it. Right? On the water one and that, he would pick it up, he would look at it, he would check it, he would check the hose, he would make sure the pin, and he would write on the back of it, on this little label, and put it down. Colours of extinguishers can be a multitude of colours. They're generally all red nowadays. If you go into department stores, supermarkets, things like that, it could be silver, it could be gold, and they will have a distinguishing label. So they have to have a full service every 5 years, right? Contents emptied and rebuilt, and a complete overhaul. Make sure everything's working, everything's good. Probably change the hoses and the braidings every 20 years. Right? They are hard to get rid of. Nobody wants them anymore. Right? You have to discharge them and take the gas cylinders off before you can even throw them in the skip, because otherwise they'll send them straight back to you. Right? So, but most people will get them checked, rebuild, and re-energise for the next site. It's the easiest way of looking at it. Signage, obviously a massive important thing. We need to make sure there's plenty of signage around it, giving us direction of the routes. When we look at the extinguishers, we've got water, carbon dioxide, foam, wet chemicals, and powder. They all work in similar sort of ways by smothering or cooling the fire in the first place. We covered the drills. We know where the assembly points are, do we? Because we give them in inductions. They are called emergency escape routes to a safe place or safe haven. Yeah. Are any of you fire wardens? No. Yeah. Yeah, generally it's something you do. What would you do as a fire warden when you're as a site manager or a fire warden? How do you record people going in onto your sites?
They're by a site.
You're by a site, yeah. Okay. They're not that good, are they, by sites? But
yeah, they're the worst.
Huh?
Yeah, they're really bad.
Yeah, problem with the buyer site, right? And I will say this. Let's say The problem with the biosite with you on your particular site, you're in cabins, a side cabin, yeah?
Yeah.
Is if there's a fire alarm, let's say your office catches light, I'm going to pick your office or the canteen below it, right? And somebody hits the alarm, right? You're not aware of it. The first thing, right, let's say you're in your office and the canteen's a light below you, somebody hits the alarm, right, to sound the alarm. First thing you've got to do is print that out. You've got to print out the report. So you sit there and it's not easy, believe me. You want to print a report out once in a while, because I've done them. You sit there and you've got to navigate and everything, and then the printer goes in the full churn mode, because it don't just give you that daily report, it wants to give you the whole month or whatever it is, right? And it goes in the full churn mode, then the printer's out of paper, or it's out of ink, right? And suddenly it becomes a major, and all you want to do is get out. Right, that's all you're looking at doing is getting out. You know what I mean? You want to get out because there's a fire. But you're there because it's your duty to print it off. Right? Because you've got to go out there with this roll call and make some sort of roll call. Anyone else got not biosite? Got any other?
Basically, you have to do every morning, or kind of.
You what? Sorry.
You have to print it every morning, then.
No, can you print it every morning? Right? Because someone, right? Because look, if I printed it out this morning at 9 o'clock, lad wouldn't be on there. Right?
Well, it's like it doesn't work in general then.
Right?
So you have to go follow the briefing sheet.
Right, so if we go for the signing in sheet,
yeah.
What happens when they go to the shop? Do they come up and sign in and out?
No.
No. Right.
I have to.
Right. When we go to the, what is yours, fingerprint or retina? That biosite.
Fingerprint.
Fingerprint, right? How often do you see the guys walk out through the goods inwards exit and go to the shop?
Yeah, but they got the handheld one.
Right. They've got something. They've got a proximity sensor on them, have they?
Yeah, they got the so all the security have the handheld one. So if they come out in their cars,
yeah, okay. Right, because obviously you can have proximity sensors as well. So if each one's got an individual, as soon as they walk out, they left side, then problem is printing this report. And some of them can work on tablets, but then as soon as you get out, and it was the Wi-Fi station that caught fire in the office, none of it works anymore. This is the problem. Right, it is a problem with everything. There's no decent system. There's no decent.
To have sticks with each company written on. Wow, it was crazy to find them.
Yeah.
Them with
what you need is turrets, 4 turrets, one on each corner of the site, with M16 rifles with telescopic sights on there. And anybody walk out, just shoot them in the leg and just say, well, they're not going anywhere. And I'll make sure I know, hang on, mark him down his left side. You know what I mean? But that's what this is what, because unfortunately, what we need to do is make sure they're all out. That's what we're trying to get to. Right? And there is no good system. Biosite works very well, but you've got to print it out.
You can find them in the change room trying to get the bags and go home.
Ed worked for Mace. Mace is probably one of the biggest company health and safety. So what do they use, Mace?
Sticks with each company.
He got a fire drill. We was working there. We had tea, right, until about 11:15 or whatever it was. We said, we'll wait here because it's going to be fire. There's no point going down, right? Because you're told when you hear that siren go, leave your vehicle and leave what you're doing and you make your way to the muster point. Right? Leave your vehicle. And this muster point, we was actually working on the jetty. Now the jetty is 10 to 15 minutes to walk it. Right? Because it stretches out to sea and the ships tie up on it. It takes 10 to 15 minutes to walk it. And then from the jetty, you've got another 10-minute walk to get up to the main office. To get up to the assembly point. So it can take you 20 minutes. Anybody who works there permanently gets a mountain bike. Alright? So if you're working there permanently, you've got a mountain bike. Anyway, siren goes off, we hangs about, walks out, goes straight to the muster point. Right? There's people at the muster point smoking. We know that's a big no-no. Right? There's people there smoking. There's people who are cleaning the big tanks. You know the big tanks where they store like the gasometers you see on the side of the road and things like that. They go up and down, but these are big tanks that store diesel or petrol. There's people on there, they're cleaning the roof of them and they're repainting them. And there's people inside the tanks and they've purged them and they're cleaning the inside out of it, getting all the thick oil out of it and making sure they're doing this, and they don't even bother coming down. And there's matey there who's in charge of the whole site screaming at them and get the fuck off that tank like this, and they're still up there ignoring it, right? And you can hear that alarm going everywhere. At the gates are the fire engines, right? Because it's a drill. The fire engines are there waiting to go, right? And there's people driving up with a roll call. Right? Everyone gets told exactly the same. Right? You say, well, I didn't want to, I was right down the bottom, so I drove up. What difference it makes? The difference it makes is these are the rules. Here's your card, go off the site. You're not coming back. And that's how they do it. And this is a major industry. They probably do 50 to 60 tankers an hour there. You know, the big petrol tankers, 50, 60 tankers filling up all the time. Right? You can't have anything. As soon as the tankers come into line, they're immediately arced out to take any electrical shock away from them. Right? Because any slight spark could send that place into oblivion. And it would wipe out half of Hampshire. Dangerous. But people just ignore it. And you'll get the idiots that smoke in places like that. Oh, I sneak the bags in. You know what I mean? Sneak the lighter in. Do you know what I mean? I sneak the vape in. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. It's what people do. Because people don't like rules. They don't like to conform. So, anyway. Biggest cause of fire in the workplace is what?
Hot work.
No, different. You said something.
That's the first time you said hot work.
Oh, no, sorry. People coming,
All the rubbish on the way.
Huh?
People coming inside. Kids.
Arson.
Yeah,
arson. Arsonists. Right? Right, okay, we're going to lunch. Back at 1:45, please.